So, oh, Miss Jihan Jamal, the queen. She's an internationally renowned belly dance artist, a master teacher, a choreographer, producer, entertainment agent, published writer. If y'all remember Yalla magazine, so good, 2009 to 2013. A blogger and the glam mod to Sugar Bay. If you follow her, you see all her pictures of her adorable grandson. She's been performing and teaching for the past 48 years throughout the US, Canada, just all over internationally. I mean, if you know her, you know. And basically, she won the title of Miss America of the belly dance scene in 1987. It's just a little accolade there I want to throw out. And her motto is be a queen, move like a goddess, and dance like a diva. The consummate elegance and the fine art of belly dance. You can catch her teaching courses. It's called the Fine Art of Belly Dance right now this semester at the Miami-Dade College in Kendall, that campus. She's been teaching there since 2018 till the present, and she's also a radio host. So the Arabic Hour, which is a public radio station, the WDNA in Miami, 88.9 FM if you ever want to tune in. And it's in collaboration with the Arab American Cultural Center. So did that till about 2022. So pretty neat stuff. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm so happy you could be here.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. So one of the goals of Let's Talk is to always talk about the difficult issues, the things that you're like, oh, or you want to stay in private, that are going on all the time with dancers, and it's never really kind of come out in such a public way. And the goal is to just simply open up different perspectives, see and listen to different artists in the industry and their experiences, in the hopes that we can learn, grow, and hopefully maybe make less mistakes, just by listening to some of these stories. So for today, we're going to be talking about undercutting in the industry, which has always a hot topic. It never goes away. It just spans the decades as it goes on. And before we kind of get into it, Jihan, I wanted to chat a little bit just for our viewers about how we got connected. So with every episode, I have guest speakers, and usually they will recommend or suggest the next speaker. I was going to have a speaker in December, and she has a move going on, but she said, you gotta have Jihan. And I said, all right. So that's how I reached out to you. And I said, okay, you've been nominated for the next episode. I'd love to hear about what you have to say, about the industry and things like that. And I've known of you for probably since I started my dance journey. Many years ago, 17 years ago, I saw you perform, I knew of you, and my mentor adores you. So that's how I've been able to kind of run into you over the years. So let's see. One of the things I want to do is to start off with your background. So a little bit about how you have come into the topic of undercutting, if you want to explain that.
Well, undercutting, I danced professionally for the first 8 to 10 years without teaching or anything like that. And I came across a lot of ladies and stuff like that, ladies in the dance, and the restaurant owners, and I never danced in a nightclub per se. I danced mostly in restaurants and in workshop situations when I've been asked to teach, etc. Of course, in the workshop situation, I haven't had a problem with that. When I started dancing professionally in restaurants and doing private events for customers that would call me, and I didn't even have to advertise. When I was dancing professionally in the restaurant, that was my business card. Everybody would come to the restaurant and see me. I would get most of my business from the customers that attended the weekend shows that we had at the restaurants. And when I started, actually, I started dancing in 79. I started studying in 79, and I started dancing professionally a year after I started. It's been 45 years. And when I started, my teachers were the ones that gave me the opportunity to dance in the restaurants where they were dancing. And I I did a few like test drives to see how I would connect with the audience and everything. And I remember the owner of the restaurant, the first restaurant I danced at in Miami, in the Rhodes in the Coral Gables, was the Middle East restaurant, which almost everybody back in the late 70s, early 80s, almost everybody started in that venue. There were very few places to dance, but they were well attended, and every single night we have live music. It wasn't just the weekends. So I did my test run through that. And I remember that the teacher that got me the job there uh, would dance only for tips. And I told the owner, no, I'm very sorry. I have to have I have to have more than that. So I mean it was ridiculously low. I started asking for $20 just to show up at the restaurant. And I gathered my tips and I shared them many times with the musicians, and I made very well on that, but I demanded that I had to be paid. And and I stopped going out for tips when I had an incident on a New Year's Eve where this gentleman was he had been drinking a lot, and when I came around to go for tips, he pulled my bra down, and I recovered real. It was a front opening bra, and I recovered and tucked myself in, and here's the owner right in front of me, and he got flashed. And after that night, I went to talk to him, and I told him, you have to pay me for a show. I'm not going. I will accept tips on the stage, but I am not going around the tables anymore. Mm-hmm. And I put my foot down on that. And a lot of the other ladies that were dancing with me were not, they didn't understand how I was able to get what I wanted. I even got the owner of the restaurant, the wife of the restaurant owner. They were Iraqis. And she sat me down. She used to be a school teacher in Iraq, and then she came to Miami, and she was the cook at her husband's restaurant. She sat me down and went over with me how a dancer should act and how to approach, the audience and all that, and how to win over the ladies that were there and not to make them jealous with the men, which was a fantastic, lesson. And I went on to dance in other places, but I put my foot down. I would have to get at least, and I'm talking, this is back in the 80s, 90s, mid 90s. I haven't danced in a restaurant in over 30, 35 years. So this was in the very beginning. And at the time, I would demand $60 per show. And I would do 2 shows a night. And then if the people came and gave me a tip, I from the stage, the waiters would gather it later, and then I would give some to the musicians. None of the owners ever demanded that I give them any money, and I got my pay plus my tips. And that went on for a long time, and then other people would come and dance for nothing. I remember one time when I was dancing in a very popular place up in Hollywood on A1A that the owner there told me, oh, so and so came by, and they said that the two of them would dance. They were a duet. The 2 of them would dance for less money than what you're charging me. And I go, thank you for telling me. I'm not going down on my prices, but remember, you get what you pay for. And I walked away, and then she called me back and she said, no, Jihan, you're going to stay with me. The other ladies were dancing in the same restaurant on different nights, but they were dancing for less than what I was getting paid for one show. And I had to put my foot down because this even happened to me while teaching at Miami-Dade a few years ago. Not so many students were signing up all the time, and I was asked to take a cut in pay, and I told the lady no, because I have been through some illnesses, and I have been teaching here during that illness, and I have never not shown up. If you're going to cut my pay, then I'm walking away. And
Yeah,
I have
super
witnesses
fun.
for, I have witnesses to that may be watching now that know that that was true. And some other people did take a cut and pay, and I don't see why you should. If I am that valuable to you, if you need me, and I bring so much money into you, whether I have 5 or 15 students in the class, then you need to pay me. The same thing with the restaurant. I remember the Middle East restaurant was, like I said, was my first restaurant that and there were some Saudi students that used to go to the University of Miami, and they would come, they, after they passed the courses in between uh, semesters, and they would come and spend a lot of money, and they would one of the first times that the Saudi students came, they made a lei of money for me.
I love
And
those.
yes, and another thing, one of the things after that incident with the gentleman that tried to pull my costume off, one of the things that I realized at the time is that we as dance artists, we are like a mirage. We're a fantasy. But once somebody touches you, then you come down to the level of a human being and being accessible for certain kinds of abuse. And that's when I realized I'm never going off the stage again. I'm staying up there. And like I said, I demanded my money. And let me tell you, there were instances I went to work for other restaurants, and there were instances where they wouldn't hire me, and that was fine. I walked away, and whenever I went to I remember uh, um, one time that I went to the Hollywood Broadwalk. It's on the beach in Hollywood. It's all lined with restaurants and shops and everything. And I had a call from a Turkish gentleman who owned one of the restaurants there, and it was a little hole in the wall. And I came in with my little portfolio and all my accolades and all my stuff. And he was surprised. He says, I've never had anybody do that. I go, well, I'm a professional. And
I love that. Yeah,
um,
yeah,
and
respect
then,
that.
I gave him my fee and all that. And one of the things that I learned not to do again, which we discussed the other day, was that he was asking me about other dancers because he was recruiting dancers. And I gave him a list of the dancers that I knew that maybe and their contact numbers and all that. And when we finished the interview, I didn't get the job. And when we finished the interview, he told me he would never give information about another restaurant owner or another restaurant to anybody looking for a place to go eat. So I learned my lesson with that. However, I still did refer certain peoples when I couldn't do a job.
Yeah, yeah. You want to kind of get
But undercutting, I've always prided myself that I charged probably more than anybody at the time. And at the time, it was $200 for a 5-10 minute show max, you know. And when I went into the entertainment agent business with Adora World Dance Productions, I would hire dancers, and I would only charge $200, minimum 5 minutes, maximum 10 minutes. I would keep $50 for my work in recruiting the job, and then I would give the dancer $150. And but I would ask him, please do not pass your business cards. I had my Adora War Dance business cards with a blank line, and I would write in their names and give it to them for them to give to the customers. And I soon discovered that not everybody paid attention to that. Even though I paid them well, they didn't ask. They could have asked for more money, and I could have asked for more money, but that was the going rate at the time, more or less, I think. I don't know. I just thought that's what the performance should be paid at least. I know now it's a lot more money, as it should be, because everything has gone up. And then, especially if we hire a band or something, that's something else to take into consideration. Because the cheapest I've ever paid for a band was $900 for a gig that lasted like 45 minutes. And that was many years ago with Komatsu of Florida. Komatsu, it's a Japanese company, and they build tractors and stuff like that. And they had a huge end of the year party, and I had all my dancers with me, and I even hired one person to help us dress quickly because we did different segments within the show, and everybody got paid very well for that, and so did I. And
Awesome.
as it should be, that's the way it should be. But as an entertainment agent, if I'm hiring you and I'm giving you work all the time, why would you go behind my back and give your personal business card? And let me tell you, we have a saying in Spanish that you can catch uh, a liar faster than you can catch a one-legged man running. And it so happened that after the gig, and you know, I've been working 48 years for AT&T. Well, I started with Southern Bell. It happened. I was in the lunchroom one day, and one of my technicians came and showed me the picture, the business card of the dancer I had hired, and I had asked her not to pass her business cards with mine. And needless to say, I never hired her again.
There's so
And
many different ways to, I guess, undercut is the way that I kind of want to maybe dive into as I hear these stories. I first want to kind of put in the preference because we kind of are getting into it of what is undercutting, just because we may have some viewers that are like, what are they taught? Like, what is undercutting? It's not illegal. So basically, undercutting is when you have a lower price than your competition. That's fine, right? Or you can have competitive rates, you can have healthy competition. But what happens is that usually in industries, there's a certain going rate, a certain minimum, let's say, if you have basic skills, and there's certain, let's equate it to salary, right? Starting ranges if you have more skills. It's the same thing with belly dance. So if you're just like, I'm just going to charge $25 for a show, that's going to be some severe undercutting because usually in your area you can ask professionals, okay, usually what's kind of like, what do you charge? What do you charge when you started? What do you charge? What do you charge that you're got a lot more business and a lot more work, you're a lot more advanced? What do you do for those that are like really, really at the top tier? So while not illegal, it's just really frowned upon and it brings down the community because
that's the
you're
main thing.
you're
That's the main
cheapening
thing,
what we do.
that you're undercutting me to get the gig, but you're hurting yourself. And that's what a lot of the dancers never understood back when I was dancing in restaurants and stuff. The same thing with customers. I've done a few bar mitzvahs. I've done shows for South Americans. I've done shows for everybody, for Arabs, for Saudis, and all that. And I always tell them, this is what I charge. Oh, but so and so told me they would charge me less than that. And I go, then by all means call them because I'm not changing my fee. And I was never afraid. I was never afraid to do that. My brother, who's an electrical contractor, always told me, you ask for what you think you're worth, and 9 people will turn you down, but there's that 10th person that will give you that gig, and you will get better gigs from that show alone. And I always took his word for that. And he's a very smart businessman, so I followed through on that. And although his field is totally different from mine, in a way it's not, you know. And but that's something I didn't understand. I've also, when I was doing the entertainment agency work, I hired somebody to do a gig, and then they contacted the person, and they promised that person that two of them would do the same thing for the same amount of money she was going to pay me. And needless to say, the customer called me and told me this, and I go ahead, hire them if you want. And then I contacted the person. I go, I don't think you're doing your math correctly, because you were going to get that much money for just you and only 5 minute show. And yes, I mean, how much is it worth for you just to book the show? Because that's the only thing you're getting out of it, is booking it yourself, unless that's the kind of business that you want to start, and you're taking this one away from me. Go ahead, do it. But
And
do the
this
math, because
like,
you're hurting yourself. You're hurting me, but you're hurting yourself.
yeah, it's like she says, it's very much the same now. We still experience it all the
I'm
time,
sure
especially,
you do.
and a lot of times it's when you're novice, you're novice. Like you don't know better. You don't even know to ask. You don't even have like you don't even know there's a community. But then there's some people that they know there's a community and they're on purpose trying to just charge really cheap. And there's usually a lot of that mindset, which I think is something that I really admire about you. The fact that you're like, this is my rate. I'm not negotiating. This is what I'm worth. I've checked with my local community about what the range is, what, around here for what we're doing. And if a client doesn't like it, you can say no. This is a
Yes.
business. This is not a hobby. Like, okay, for some people maybe, but if you're working, you're performing, you're trying to represent Middle East or different cultures sometimes of your own, there's a lot of responsibility, even with every choice you make when you design these shows. And then to just like undercut, oh my gosh. And there's many ways to undercut, which I think is another thing we can kind of flow into is one thing is the price you charge for a show per show, right? You can undercut by then also taking gigs from another different area, different city, because you're going to that gig and you're not even charging for travel. So you can charge an hour, 2 hours, that is all that if you have a business expense, you're looking at your travel, your maintenance of your vehicle, your time,
Exactly.
you're taking gigs away from that community if you're not charging and keeping that in mind. Like there's so many ways to do it to undercut. You can undercut and say, oh, I'm doing a show, but I have 2, 3 sets a night for the same price that it would cost a dancer one set, what they would charge. Like there's many ways to undercut. And it doesn't mean you're bad, but if you're doing it on purpose like that, you're ruining it for your community, the other community. Like we've had issues like this in Florida all the time that we hear about. And it gets me going because there's so much information online, and you're like, why is this still happening?
Yeah. As an entertainment agent, many times I'm based in Miami, and I would get calls for the Florida Keys, for Key West or Key Largo. And I always demanded extra pay for that, for the dancer, for her miles traveled, and, or if they had to stay overnight, for something like that. That only happened a couple of times. Most of the dancers, like most of the shows were in Key Largo in the hotels and stuff like that, which is only an hour's drive, but I would still also ask for that. And not only doing that, but as an agent, I took the time to investigate the customer. I remember one time I had a call to do for two girls to do a show on a boat with all males, businessmen, and I turned it down and I go, no, I do not do that because you're going out on a boat, it's all men, there's liquor and all that, and heaven knows what would happen to my girls, and I am not going to be there to defend them, and I can't call the police to go after them. So that's another thing as an agent that I would do. I was very protective of my dancers, which is something a lot of people did not take into consideration.
Very good point for sure. I mean, there's so many ways. There's so many things to consider. Like you just said, safety. That's another thing. Like that's so big, so big. I love Vanessa. She just kind of put in a thing of like, there's just no excuse with social media and Google, like everything we have. Just ignorance is just like not even an excuse anymore. A lot of times, what we hear on the undercutting nowadays, and probably then too, Jihan, let me know, but is they'll be like, oh, but I live off of this, this mindset of like, I have to get the gig. I depend on
Well,
this
you
to pay
should be
my
asking
bills.
for more, and you should be, and you asking for more, you're going to get better costumes, you're going to get better footwear, you're going to take better care of yourself. You're not going to be spread out. Instead of having to do 5 shows on a New Year's Eve, you do one that's going to pay for your whole evening.
For
But
sure.
you have to love yourself to do that, Jennifer. You have to really, I understand that everybody wants to dance, and it's, I know how I fell in love with the dance, and I would, I had a 3-year-old, and I felt guilty because sometimes I would think more about my gigs and stuff like that than I would my son. And thank God I always dragged him and my mother along for all the workshops that we did out of town and stuff like that. And to this day, I believe that you you don't reach a point where, oh, I don't have to take classes anymore. No, you have to keep refreshing yourself. So you want to make enough money so you can afford to go to Tito's class, or you can afford to go to Ahlan Wasahlan in Cairo and stuff like that. So why cheat yourself out of that? And why do that to another dancer who is just trying to do it because either for the money or the artistry, or because it made them feel good, or they needed that extra oomph in their life, you know. And another thing, like when I was dancing in the restaurant, I remember I danced in the Caravan restaurant, which was in near Dadeland Mall, Dadeland Boulevard exactly. And uh, Samir would have me there every Friday and Saturday, and I told him, you need to get other dancers because your public needs to see different styles. They need to see different women, different people, and you need to have, you know, a variety of dancers and styles and looks from different dancers. And I called uh, these two ladies from the Miami area, and they worked there for a while. I was still working there and all that. And then Samir comes to me and says, so and so told me that they would do, again, they would do 3 shows for the same amount that you charge me for one person. And I go, Samir, you and I go a long ways. You do what you want, but remember what I told you. You get what you pay for. And then I had my own fans, you know, amongst the people that came there to eat and stuff like that. And they would ask for me. And for this people that I opened the doors to, hey, here's a gig you can do and give me a break. Because sometimes I wanted to do private shows. I would make a lot more money doing private shows than I would dancing in a restaurant, although I always got paid and I always kept my tips and all that. And at the Caravan, I didn't have any live music. It was the recorded music. It was a very small place. But for this couple of dancers to do that, like, you know, what are you getting out of this? What joy are you getting of, I mean, don't you feel bad that you're working for less money than I am? I, I don't understand that.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy. I think that one of the things that I had kind of shared with you was sometimes you get resented for charging the right rates. So I had an experience when I first, like West Palm Beach, it was like one of my first experiences with undercutting and like the flip side of it for some people that might be listening, where I had to travel from another city to West Palm Beach once I moved out of West Palm Beach. There was a dancer that was working at a restaurant there for a while, and she would travel from Deansville to West Palm Beach, but she did not charge for travel ever. She just performed for her rate. Okay. I didn't know her at the time, but once I came, when I was invited by my booker at the time, hey, would you be willing to come to West Palm Beach? And I was like, okay, but here's my travel fee. This is what I want. And and I was like 19, but I was like, this is my travel fee. This is what I want. And the owner, she's like, let me ask the owner. And the owner said yes. And when I did my show, my booker was like, awesome. Wow, we're so proud. Like, that's awesome. Like, we've never had someone out of town ask for travel before. And they said yes. Like, and they liked you. I was like, oh, great. And then when the other dancer found out that I had gotten not just the pay for the show, but got what I demanded for the travel and everything of my time, she got mad. And she like got mad that I got, and I was like, what? It was like reverse psychology undercutting, because I think at the end of the day, in my experience, I used to run a page about just rates in the community. You start talking about money, and it's not even money. Sometimes it's like mental. People have a bad relationship just talking about money. It comes down to like confidence a lot of times, traumas. It's so much deeper than just a rate. Like it comes down to a lot of times in my experience, like the girl's confidence or the guy's confidence of why they're charging less or fear. What has been your experience, Jihan?
I I never, you know, I confronted the people directly, and of course they just wouldn't say anything back. So I've that I know of, I've never had anybody get mad at me or get vicious with me or anything like that. Thank God, I've never had that. I'm very much from the hip. I'm very direct, and my friends and my students and all that can tell you, I don't hold back. But I also choose my battles. But thank God I've never had a problem with any dancer as far as that goes that I am aware of. I'm sure that the two ladies that try to undercut me probably badmouth me and stuff like that, and they were very snotty to me at times when we were in workshop situation. But that's none of my business. If if you want to act like that, that's your business, not mine. And everybody's entitled to whatever, and I'm not going to let that stop me from what I'm doing. Amara from MEPA asked me one time, Jihan, what do you attribute your longevity in the dance? I'm going to be 74 years old. And I still do perform in workshop situations, and I love dancing. I dance, all the time, and it's a passion. And for me, my classes are my stage, and especially when I hire live drummers to come to my class, which I try to do often because I feel very fortunate that when I was dancing, I always had live music, except for the Caravan. That was the only restaurant that I danced to recorded music. And, uh, I told her, first of all, you know, I'm very fair. I've never undercut anybody knowingly. I always, when I first started in the business, I would ask around, what's the going rate and stuff like that. And I always added a little extra for myself. And like I said, I always prided myself in that I did that. And like I said, I didn't get all the gigs, but I got a lot, you know. And unfortunately, this is something that we discussed in my Women of the Silk Veil end of year event last Saturday at Aladdin Restaurant in Kendall, that Sayuri was talking about, because she's trying to do the same thing, trying to get everybody to get paid, and that's something else that this is my dream, that we would get paid for everything and not be expected to dance for free because whatever. The only time I have danced for free, and I did it very, very much, was when my teacher wanted to, Evelyn Hamzi, the late Evelyn Hamzi, Aziza was her dance name. She was Syrian Canadian, and she was I met her 2 years into my dancing, and I learned a lot from her. And like, she would ask me to come to the retirement homes and do free shows for them, and that I never said no to her. Another instance is with Father Crahan. He's a British priest who did a lot of work in Lebanon, and he did a lot of, this was back in the 80s, 90s also. He did a lot of uh, uh, working, getting money for Lebanese children that were displaced and everything. And if he asked me to dance for him, he didn't have to ask me twice. I was there, and I wouldn't charge him any money. Whatever he was going to pay me, I wanted him to donate. So those are instances where I haven't charged for dancing. But otherwise, no, you want me, you got to pay for it. And and I need to pay for my classes. I need to pay for my costumes and all that. And the only thing that's going to keep me going is to keep making money. And I'll tell you another thing. In my 45 years in the dance, the best gig I have ever done was in Nagoya, Japan, where I was paid $4,000 for teaching 13 hours in 3 days, all expenses paid, airfare, everything. And that's what we should be getting. That's what we should be
It should
getting.
always be that, yeah. I had one of my best gigs this year, and I'll say it here, I charge my fee like I always do. It's $500. It's like to get it moving
And
for this
that's
type of
nothing
event.
now. That's nothing now,
No.
please, with everything going
And
up.
then it was 5 hours away. So I was like, okay, I need 1,200 for travel.
Good for
And then I was like, it's overnight. I need a hotel as well. And the clients, when they want your thing, if they understand and you give them the value proposition, this is like business 101, you know, they do it because they know what they want. They know that this is a once in a lifetime thing. They want, you know, quality. They want something that their families are there. It's a big thing. And if you give them and you show them that you are confident in doing the job and you show them that, hey, I can do this well, you know, they will pay it. And I feel like a lot of times back to that undercutting, there's always like that mindset of this fear, like there's not enough, or like people don't even think I can charge that. I can charge for my travel, my hotel. I can ask that of the client.
You
Like
never
you
know
always
until you try. You never know what you can achieve until you try.
exactly. The worst they say is no.
Exactly.
Okay, next. I mean, it's you're gonna be okay, you know? There's always work. There's so much work. There really is. There's like abundance if you open up your mind to like that abundance mindset.
Going back to what Amara had asked me about my longevity, I don't undercut anybody. If you don't like me or something like that, that's fine. None of my business. And I try never to make somebody else look bad or tell somebody else, no, don't do this, don't do that, because you shouldn't be hiring her. That's none of my business either. And I always promote those people that I feel should have promotion in this. I'm not going to last forever. I'm not going to be, like I said, I haven't danced in a private party or restaurant in 35 years, and I always looked a lot younger than my age, so I danced into my 40s, but I mean, I'm still dancing, but not in private parties, unless it's a friend or something that asked me to do something at their wedding, whatever. And then I really have to think about it. Are they going to be happy with me, or hey, why don't you hire somebody else? And that's another thing. And this is another reason why I created then my Women of the Soul Veil, is to educate uh, the community and to have them fall in love with this culture and this dance like I do. Not everybody that's in this dance has anything to do with the culture or care about it. I think for myself, I have to uphold the culture, and I'm very, I try to be very respectful of everything. I've been to Egypt. When I go to Egypt, I cover up. I don't, you know why? Because there's women in Egypt, in the Middle East, that cannot be as free to dress, showing cleavage or anything like that as I am. So in respect to them, I make sure I dress very modestly. And when I was married to my Egyptian husband, I wore the hijab or hijab in Egypt. And it's pronounced in Egypt, like in Egypt, my name is Gihan, not Jihan.
Yeah.
But
Shifting gears, you mentioned one of your mistakes, about like, I love that story about the restaurant owner where he was like, I wouldn't give you the information about the restaurant, my competitor, et cetera. What's another, I think, mistake or growth type of opportunity you had, that comes to mind? I think there was something about um, like a non-refundable deposit from hiring like an agent type of story you told me the other day. Tell me about that, like trusting others to be ethical, basically.
well, I think when you quote something, especially if you're not guaranteed anything or anything like that, that you should be, let's say for like bar mitzvahs or big parties or quinceañeras or sweet sixteens, that you give a quote to the family and all that, and you should demand a non-refundable amount, just to make sure that they know that you're a professional and you're going to demand what you want. You're being a business person. You're looking out for yourself. You're taking up my time by just talking to me about this. I could be talking to you for an hour on the phone, trying to go back and forth to what you want. That's worth money too. So
Yeah, it's all part of the job, the
right. But
communication.
my regret, that's in the beginning, I didn't do that. So that's one regret that I had. So you learn with experience also, and you have to educate yourself. You have to grow from the bad experiences you had. I've been very lucky that I haven't had that many bad experiences. Not with clients, not with with somebody that has wanted to hire me. Thank God. Except for that time that about the boat and stuff, and I told the lawyer, no, get yourself somebody else. I'm not putting my girls out there like that.
For sure.
Unless you're willing to pay for me to be a chaperone for them.
Yeah. That's ooh,
But no, I
these
got
are
a bad vibe from that. I also one time had a gig in Coconut Grove where these two guys. Um, uh, I mean, the guy hired me. I went there with my student. It was a student thing, but I was charging as a professional. I brought my students as a background dancers and stuff, and they were paid. And when we got there was only two men there, and I got out of there like a bat out of hell. That's one reason that made me, one mistake that made me learn to do background checks on clients when they did something like that. And it wasn't always easy to do. It wasn't,
really
nowadays you can do it, but back then it was harder to do. But that was one scary thing. And then after that, that happened to me, I started bringing a bodyguard with me.
yeah, that
Mostly my boyfriends at the time.
yeah. It's usually like the boyfriends, the husbands, the yeah, we
Yeah.
all
No,
yep,
I never
I
had a husband come with me, but I had my boyfriends come with me, or
totally,
I would
yep.
hire somebody to come with me.
Yes, for sure. I think one of the mistakes I've had definitely a couple, like I remember there was a new venue where when I was doing restaurant work, this is ages ago because I mainly do private work, but it's always like the restaurant stuff. And it was a new restaurant. I went, I said, okay, da, 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 I'd like to my knowledge, there was no dancers. They had just opened. So I go and I perform that night, and they had another dancer I knew there. And I was like, "Oh my God, you're here. Oh my God, like I just started here. It's my first night." And she's like, "Yeah, blah blah blah. Like, what are you charging?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm charging blah 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 for my set," which was like a very normal price in my area. But I didn't know that she's also like the first day, right? First dancer. She's like, I negotiated, let's just say like $50 more. And I was like, oh shit. I was like, I didn't even know you were here. I didn't even know. I thought I was the only dancer, like starting it off. The owners didn't say anything. So, I was like, shit. I wish I had like known like there was a system or somehow I should have been like, did you hire another dancer to start off this night at your restaurant?
But
Because then
what are
that
the
could have been avoided.
they may choose to tell you no. They may choose to tell you no, and you don't know until you get there.
Which
There's
is like
certain things
the point.
that we don't have much control over,
I know it was
unfortunately.
still frustrating. I'm like, dang, I would have wanted $50 more. Jesus. So then I stopped dancing there. So she cut the gig. I was like, no, 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 no. I'm not ruining it. But again, really mad. I like making money. And I would think another mistake I've had that is I think people have abundance mindsets all the time. This has always been one of my things. I'm like, oh, there's always enough work. And there's people that are like, no, there's not enough work. And I'm just like,
I've always my thing is there's always been around enough to go around for everybody. What's mine, you're not going to steal from me, definitely. What's yours, I'm not going to steal from you if I tried. I believe that. I believe that what's yours is yours, what's mine is mine, or it can be ours also. There's no reason why we can't work together on something, you know. But I thank God I didn't have that many experiences like that. Again, I only danced professionally 8 or 10 years, maybe a decade, and then I started teaching after that. I refused to teach while I was dancing, when I started, when I thought I was good enough to start teaching, I went back to take ballet. I took ballet as a child, but I went back to take ballet so I could, instruct, because another pet peeve I have with the dance is like we don't really have a language for our dance
no
per se.
standardization
I
now.
think the only step that everybody uh, knows is the Maya. I think that's one of the movements that we all connect with, the Maya. But anything else, I use ballet terms when I teach, and like I said, I went back to studying ballet, and I make sure, even to this day, I still take workshops. Not as many many as I used to at one time, but I still do. And the last workshop I took was with Ariel from Cairo, who's I think she's coming in March now. And I took a workshop online with her, and I took one when she was visiting here in Miami last March. And then I got COVID for the first time. I'm just kidding. But
Kind of going back to all of this, where yeah, it could be performance and you've had this word, but even teaching, as you mentioned, you getting paid your rate for teaching, that's it comes up in so many different ways. It's not even just these two we've been talking about. There's so many ways to undercut if you make a product, etc. But what do you feel are like one or two ways that as a community we can improve when it comes to this topic of undercutting? What do you think would be the two most effective things that like would
well,
help
what we're
stop?
doing right now, what we're doing right now is one of them. I mean, you're not going to be able to control what other people do or anything like that. And there will be people out there that just to make sure that they dance, they will do it for free, or they would do it for I'll dance for food or something like that. They'll do it for a plate of at a restaurant or something, which I think is ridiculous. But
For
I
exposure,
I
my
can pay for
favorite.
my own food even if I'm dancing at your restaurant. But you're going to pay me for what I do. But I think talking about it, being open about it, having conversations like this, especially for the up and coming generation that is just dancing now, and knowing not to be afraid and to have enough self-worth that you're not afraid of asking for what you really think you're worth. And maybe somebody doesn't know or doesn't care to find out what other people are charging and stuff like that. They just want to dance. There's nothing you're going to be able to do about that. And it's not for me to teach them anymore about that. I will give my opinion, and if somebody genuinely wants to learn, I will tell them. But always look out for yourself and look out for others too, because maybe others don't know any better, or just give an opinion. But in today's world, I would give an opinion if I'm asked. You know,
Yeah, I
my
know what you're talking.
students now, my students are different. My students, I teach them, and they can all tell you that I do this. And I like to say that my classes, I'm very excited when I see women coming in their workout clothes and stuff like that, and that I can, by what I teach both verbally and physically in the dance, both dance and also I believe I do uplifting in my class, that I teach women to value themselves. And it's it, it's amazing. Then 3 4 classes later, they come all with makeup and
Yeah.
earrings and their hip sashes and all that, and it's like, wow, what a transformation. And that doing that, and when I teach, my students will tell you that what I teach and how to look out for themselves, how to better themselves all the time, and not to compare themselves with anybody else, because that makes no sense whatsoever.
Yeah.
Like I said, what's mine is mine, what's yours is yours. And I do believe that, and I do believe there's enough to go around for everybody, even though we're going through hard times right now. you know but there's been hard times all along, and there's going to be hard times in the future as well.
Part of business. I
Yeah.
think that's always what I come back to so many times in my advice is I used to do this full time back in the day when I was doing restaurants and private parties, And if you keep a budget, you say, oh my God, my rent is this much, my water's this much, my electricity, my travel, my maintenance. Like you start putting all that in there and you say, how much is coming in? And it was never like, oh snap, it's not enough, so I need to drop all my rates by 50%. It was, oh my goodness, it might not be enough, especially like January, July, December, January, like November, December, sorry. Those are always slow months in my area. So what are you gonna do? maybe think creatively. Like this is a business. You can't lose money and keep doing it. You know, you have to say, I need to branch out here. Maybe I need to do this different side hustle, this item. Maybe I get a day job. Yeah, you don't want to have to do it, but if it's not making enough, you need to figure it out. And I feel like there's a lot of maybe I don't I'm like, hey, I'm not mad at it. If you have a partner and you're sharing things and they're paying for all these things, great. But you're doing yourself a disservice by saying I'm worth less just because you have support. Like you should still be able to stand a business financially on paper, look at all these things and say, this is making a profit and I'm able to live off of it.
The way
And if
I,
you're not, you need to figure ish out because it's not, then it's just fun. This isn't a game. Like this is a business, you know, regardless of who you're married to, what you're doing, etc. You have to make ends meet.
I'm a very independent person. I've had to learn to do that. I was always a late bloomer. I come from a culture where women are less than men and they're held back and all that. And I've had to, you know, get get my pants on right. And I don't I don't care how much your partner makes or how much they make for you and stuff like that. You should be able to stand on your own because you never know what changes life will bring you, and you cannot depend on somebody else's income for your own. So you have to learn to you know to do that for yourself, to be able to stand on your own 2 feet. And the day that it doesn't work out for you, you say, hey baby, I'm leaving. You know, I'm not going to stay around anymore. And to be able to do it confidently, that you will be able to do. And this is something that I I think I teach that in my classes for women to do that. And let me tell you, it took
Love
me a
that.
long time. I've struggled a lot in my life and everything. And now I'm in a good place. I'm not rich or anything like that, but I'm in a good place where I can make real choices, and it feels really good. That I and
Yeah.
like I said back then, even when I needed money, I would not. I mean, it was an insult for me for somebody to tell me, "Oh, how much do you charge? 25?" I go, "Really? Are you kidding me?" But a lot of people think that, and entertainment is very, very expensive. And what I don't understand, musicians will charge 3 times what we charge, which is fine. I don't have a problem with that. They need to charge what they're worth also. And
Yeah. Yeah.
nobody has qualms about that. Why, with a dance artist, would they have qualms about paying them more?
We
And why would you
made all the
and why
biggest
would you
memories
feed that?
doing
Why
it.
would you sustain that mentality that we don't need to make that much money? You're hurting yourself. That's all.
I love that. Yeah. I just spoke to a dancer last week, sweetest girl, and she's surviving the mindset off of it and working for less because she's like, I rely on this. And I'm just like, listen, I can't support and I don't want to really work these type of gigs anyways. It's definitely not my rate, but I can support by they can call me and I can tell them what my rate would be. It's going to make your rate look way good, you know, like, but hopefully she charges more. She, you know, she's worth more. Like she really is. Um, I guess some viewer commentary. Ooh, I read some of them because I can't believe the hour is almost here, Jihan. I can't believe it. I read
I
some
told
of
you.
them.
I told you.
I know it goes fast.
We didn't
Okay,
even
yeah, this is only.
cover about the Sweet 16 party. We can do that some other time.
Vanessa, okay, fire. Also, dancers use the excuse that they live off of this, so it makes it okay to charge less. I just heard it. Yeah, like I mentioned, I just heard that again last week. I hear that all the time, and it's like, if you ain't making enough to live off of it, it's a hobby, sister, brother. I don't know what to tell you. You need to get a side job, get a day job, make it happen. Uber, I don't know. Figure it out. In today's age with social media, oh yeah, I did this one about like the ignorance and like saying they don't know, but there's ways to know. There really
Well,
is. There's a lot.
your dance teacher should be teaching you this also. Because as
Well,
a dance teacher, you need to teach economics to your students too that are going to be professional.
that is a beautiful point, but some of them don't have dance teachers. So this comment here, entertainers no longer want to continue their education. Some say they can't afford it. I have heard this multiple times, and it just to me, I go, like, oh, there's so many things there. I'm just like, my gosh, no. Like if you can't afford it, again, you need to figure some things out in your business because something's not adding up right. Usually, ask somebody, talk to somebody who's been there. Like there's so much that can be shared and like learn and like tactics and what worked and there's so much good
let's
information.
let's say that you can't afford classes. When I first started, and I went through three teachers before I met Aziza, my main teacher, Evelyn, the Arabic lady. And we used to sit and watch videos. I used to not go on dates, to spend weekends watching videos with Evelyn, and then we would practice with each other, what we just saw. And this is, if you cannot afford to take classes, you can afford to watch videos of other dancers and learn from that.
That's such a good point. Yeah, there's so many
If
ways.
you're paying to stream a show or something, you pay through the nose for cable or something like that, you should be able to use that money for what is convenient to you and what's going to help you, not
When
just I only I don't even have cable. I don't pay for cable because I prefer to give to PBS, Public Broadcast System, for their shows, which I
yeah,
know what I pay for them. It's much less than paying for cable, but it's going to help somebody and keep those shows coming. But you can learn so much from just observing. Go to the Arabic church parties. I did a lot of that. I was very glad that I was part of the Arab American Cultural Center in Miami. And Aziza was the secretary, and she brought me into the fold. And that's how I got the gig for the Arab Hour on WDNA, because the guy that was running the show, that was volunteering. That was to help the show. And the guy left. He left out of town, and nobody else would volunteer. And I said, I'll do it. And it was an education for me. So even though I wasn't getting paid for that, I did it for the community as a public service. And I learned so much from that. That to me is priceless. But if you can't afford, sometimes I can't afford at a certain time to pay five, and it's $500 for a workshop weekend, but then you have the hotel and you have the travel and all that. So sometimes you're spending $1,200, to do that. And if you can't afford that, then at least maybe go to the shows and observe, because you can always pick up a lot just from observation.
we can do trades. Like I remember back in the day, we would have, where you would have someone that would take attendance in the sign in and get the students money. And like your teacher needs that help because they're trying to prep to teach. So like you can trade, you could ask for payment plans. You could ask, like I know when I was relying and living off of this, even at my best money making year, I never got my nails done. Like I'll see girls say, oh, or guys, oh, I can't afford this, but they have the best makeup, their nails are done, their extensions are, and I'm like, oh, your money is there. You're just not prioritizing it on maybe the best
No,
thing
not
to do with
only
your
that,
business.
but if you're spending the money on the way, you present yourself to your public, then you need to be charging accordingly too.
All part of the expenses. Otherwise, make some hard decisions. Like I had to make hard decisions. I could not get my nails done for a while. That's okay.
Just
I did them myself.
and the main thing here is not to undercut somebody to get a gig from
Yeah.
somebody else, because you know what goes around comes around too. And I believe in karma also.
Mm. We see the joy of taking what's not yours. Yes. Value and mindset, very important. What you think you're worth versus what they do. Yes. I'm sure that when you value yourself, that other person feels personally attacked because they didn't have the cojones to value themselves. Oh, I think this is when we were
But
chatting about.
that's okay, because they're learning something in that. Even though they may
They
be
sure are.
angry at that moment, they will come to realize, you know, why am I angry at that person? I need to consider this for myself. And you
Yeah.
know what? Okay, so I made a mistake. I can learn from this and do better the next time. And that way
Some,
you're not going to carry that with you also, or
yeah.
carry chip on your shoulder. And, you know, like what you said, that you got upset with that lady was charging more than you, but you learned from that.
Sure
It was,
did.
yeah.
That's why sometimes like mistakes are really good.
That was not on your part. That was not undercutting because you didn't know any better, and you didn't know that this other lady was making more money than you were, or that she was charging and getting away with it. But then, you know, no restaurant owner is going to tell you, oh, you're not charging enough. You have to do
Yeah,
that yourself.
exactly.
Well, they're
Then I think,
business people. They're not going to do that to themselves, you know.
and then I think one of the last, oh, did I miss you? Oh no. Hello, hello.
I'm here.
Hello. Okay, there we go. My internet. One of the last comments, just some of these girls learn online. They don't have teachers or mentor. Yeah, like we mentioned, yeah. They'll just kind of watch YouTube or a video
There's
at
nothing.
home or
There's
they see
nothing
on
wrong with
TikTok.
that. There's nothing
Yeah.
wrong with that. But I do believe that sometimes you need guidance, that somebody will go out of their way and tell you, hey, you know, do this way. The way you're doing it is not correct. But then, you know, you have to open yourself for that and not take it personally, and don't take it, you know, as ill, you know, as criticism, but
Hmm.
as creative instruction. Of course,
Yes. Very.
there's people out there that like to be nasty too. So, but you know what? Growing up a dancer, you're going to learn a lot, and by the time you've been in this for 20 years, you're going to be very well
You
educated.
get a thick
I,
skin.
yeah,
Then I have sign Jihan up for a mini series. Yes. We need a part two. They can barter. Yes, they sure can.
yeah.
Thank you everyone so much for your commentary. Keep the discussion going once the live's over. We're at our last minute here, so thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, Jahan, for everything.
Thank you for having
You,
me. Thank you,
if you had
everybody.
if you had to sum it up in just like your wish for everyone in one sentence, what would it be about undercutting? Just like a one sentence wrapper upper.
Love yourself first.
Oh, I love it! Yes! Thank you, Jihan. Bye, everyone.
Bye, and
Thank you so much.
happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Hanukkah, everything to everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.